tuning into another episode of the Unruly Hour with Savage Joy. I am tonight welcoming back Ryan Knight. We had a great conversation about a month ago. And, there's so much shit going on that it seemed appropriate to have him back. So thanks so much for joining me again, Ryan.
Thank you for having me back. It is a pleasure to be back.
Thank you. And, I literally just got this like breaking exclusive.
Ooh.
I don't know if it's like for sure because who knows? It didn't come from Biden's mouth, but Democratic insiders have told political video channel that Biden is likely picking Susan Rice. And which is interesting because I'm kind of like, well, I don't want Kamala. I think she's just awful. But one of the reasons that it makes me laugh that she wouldn't be picked is because K-Hive is already melting down. And after how awful they've all been to us,
Yeah.
I'm kind of like almost enjoying it. Not to be a total bitch, but karma does kind of suck. What are your thoughts about it possibly being Susan Rice?
You know what? And this might sound cynical, like I just do not see Joe Biden's looming presidency as a vehicle for the kind of fundamental change that we need to heal this nation and move this nation forward. So I haven't really even been paying attention to the VP thing. The thing that troubles me about Susan Rice is it feels like they just want to go back to 2016, right? That they just want to go back in time to the Obama administration. And, maybe when you compare things to the Trump administration, like that might sound good to people at a quick glance. But I think this idea that like we need to go back to quote unquote normal, I think people need to understand what normal actually means for millions of Americans, right? Normal means 87 million people are uninsured or underinsured. Going back to normal means that the black-white wealth gap hasn't changed since 1968, since the Civil Rights Movement. Going back to normal means more war, more inequality, more injustice. We don't need to go back to normal. We need to move forward. We need a better world. And I just don't see that from Joe Biden, from the way he's campaigning, and now to choose Susan Rice. She's first off, she's a warmonger, so that makes me very nervous. And the second thing that it's like if you had to ask like, who do I think is going to win, I do think Joe Biden will win. But again, there's a difference between beating Donald Trump and moving America forward and beating Donald Trump and returning to business as usual. And my fear is that's where this is all headed, that we're not going to tackle the systemic problems and the inequality and the injustice in our nation that kind of led to Trump winning in the first place. So it all just feels like we're going backwards in time when we need to be moving forward.
Yeah, absolutely. They are they're not even trying. I mean, unfortunately, a lot of people said, look, you want Berner's votes, pick Bernie as VP or pick Miss Nina as VP. Like, we ain't going any more centrist than that. Those two are your options. Not that I think Miss Nina would have accepted necessarily, but the gesture alone would show that they're like at least somewhat trying to listen to us. But it's definitely frustrating when all you see is people online just going at you about like how awful you are because we're giving Trump another term, but when the hell are they making calls? Because they're online 24/7 vote shaming people, so I don't know when they have time to make calls.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, and Joe Biden has yet to make one major policy concession to the left. You know, he's kind of had little tiny things here and there, but I mean, this moment demands revolutionary change. You know, this moment demands Medicare for all. This moment demands a Green New Deal. This moment demands universal basic income. This moment demands student debt cancellation. This moment demands defunding our police and moving to a public safety system that is more, you know, where Black and brown people can feel safe in their neighborhoods. You know, none of these big structural systemic changes that we need are even being considered or talked about. And then, of course, last week, we had the DNC vote against Medicare for all, Medicare for kids. They voted against cannabis legalization. They voted against banning corporate PAC money. And here's my favorite. They voted against rejecting corporate lobbyists from serving on the DNC. Yes. So the DNC is literally telling us that in this moment of deep inequality and deep systemic racism, that they don't want to make any systemic changes themselves. They want to remain a party that serves the oligarchy. And I think we need to be really clear about that. You know, I think if you ask most neoliberals and centrists, they would tell you that the Titanic is sinking because we have a corrupt president. I would say that they're wrong. The Titanic is sinking because our entire system is corrupt. We live in an oligarchy where both political parties are bought, paid for, and controlled by the ruling class. And that's just not a politics that is going to help, you know, working people, and it's going to help our planet and going to help us move this nation forward. And I do think the big fear I have now is watching the Democrats retreat and kind of run a campaign that's all based on, you know, Trump is bad and not based on bold policies to move us forward. I really think we're going to get an even worse version of Trump either in 2024 or 2028.
Cotton. All I think about every time I see Tom Cotton, I'm like, 2024, guarantee it. He's gonna run.
Horrible guy on Fox News. There's rumors about him too. I can't even think of his name right now. Tucker Carlson. You know, they will run another populist. You know, a fake populist. And again, when the Democrats run these neoliberal centrist candidates that don't really stand for anything except their corporate donors, and they feed the public these platitudes of hope and change that have never come, by the way, right? Obama fed us hope and change in 2008, and turned out he was just another corporatist. So we've got to get away from this politics that's like we're stuck in this political system where every 4 and 8 years we go back and forth from right-wing fascism to center-right corporate extremism. And that's just not a politics that's going to improve the lives of the American people, you know, to combat any of these systemic problems that we have.
Absolutely. And, you know, I do differ with you in the sense that I don't necessarily think Joe is going to nail this. I don't. I think either way, it's going to be ridiculously close. And I would not be surprised if Trump gives another win. We're seeing so many things like we saw in 2016. Nobody's inspired. It's like he doesn't have any like supporters. He has voters because people hate Trump. And at least Hillary, as disgusting as she is, had the first woman thing that she used to like manipulate people. What the hell does Joe have? He has cognitive decline. He has a horrible history. He makes just racist comments all the time. Oz, I just sent you a couple video clips in the Facebook Messenger of Biden today and yesterday. So we make fun of him for being like in his bunker or whatever, but they need to keep his ass there because every time they film him, it is disastrous. But it also shows that they literally can't. They're already 6 feet under. Their bar is so low that it doesn't matter to them. They can literally say and do anything. And as long as they put that boogeyman's name, Trump, in there, they're excused.
Yeah, I think his comment today is that he said that the African American community is not diverse. I mean, just and where like overtly racist and totally unnecessary. And especially because that is the biggest part of his base, who really secured him the win. I think that you're hitting on some good points. I think that for me, I think that the corporate wing of the Democratic Party and liberals didn't learn the real lesson from 2016. And that is you can't just give people something to vote against. You have to give people something to vote for. And that is Biden's big problem. You see outfits like the Lincoln Project, and you see all these ads being run. They're all over Twitter, they're all over Facebook, and I hear liberals praising these ads like they're so glorious, and the ads have no message, no vision, there's no policy prescriptions on moving us forward. The ads are entirely anti-Trump. Okay, people who have made their mind up about Donald Trump, and everyone who's against him is already against him. That is not going to expand your base by just being against Trump. You have to be for something. And that is Biden's problem. That's all corporate Democrats' problem. Because again, they're not for anything except their corporate donors. And that's why they rely on these platitudes. That's why you see candidates like Buttigieg. And, we saw it with Obama, unfortunately. I campaigned for him and I was so excited for him and, the hope and change. Turns out, like, they sedate us with these hope and change platitudes, but there's no actual policies and there's no actual will to fight for, the change that the people actually need. And that's the problem. And so this kind of Republican light, I call it corporate extremism. Some people call it neoliberalism. That's just not enough to meet this moment, right? We've got 5.4 million people who've lost their health care in this pandemic. We've got 28 million people who didn't get enough food to eat. There was a report last week, 28 million Americans are reporting that they aren't getting enough food to eat because they can't afford food. And even scarier, there is another report that says that there are up to 30 million Americans who could face eviction over the next few months. And that is because our government chose to bail out Wall Street, bail out their corporate donors, and abandon the American people during a crisis, during a pandemic. But it's really just kind of epidemic of what our entire government has been like for the last 3 decades. Our government doesn't work for the people anymore. And until we change that, nothing else is going to change. And, a lot of people blame Citizens United, but, there are great progressives running right now who aren't taking any corporate PAC money. I don't see centrists and liberals jumping to go support those candidates. I've had those candidates on my podcast. I know you've supported a lot of the down ballot progressives yourself, a lot of the Democratic Socialists running. They run for office with no corporate PAC money. And so people can get behind those kind of candidates. Bernie ran his campaign without taking corporate PAC money. So it's like you can have candidates who are unbought, but the public isn't aware of what's really going on. That again, these corporate Democrats operate just like Republicans, and that they put their donors and they put the elites over the working class and over, the policies that we need to move forward. So until people wake up to that, that nothing's going to change. And who told us that? Joe Biden himself. Nothing will fundamentally change. It's the most honest thing he's ever said.
Yep, absolutely. And even Uncle Bernie, you know what? I don't even pay attention to his tweets as much anymore because it just hurts my heart. But today it does. I'm like, oh my God, Bernie, just please, just please. I love you so much, and you're like ripping my heart out. But yesterday he made a Twitter post that said, I'm going to give you 10 reasons why we gotta show up strong for Dems in November. Every single one had Trump in it. Every single one had the word Trump.
Yep.
Now, listen, Bernie, I know you agreed, to, promote the candidate. We didn't. And you're literally, you can't even give us one reason to vote for this idiot besides but Trump.
Yeah, I saw that myself. He listed 10 reasons why we need to get Trump out, and all 10 of them were things about Trump that are bad. Not one thing was a reason to vote for Joe Biden. And I alluded to this earlier. Like we are in a moment where we need significant changes in this country. And if the Democratic Party isn't going to fight for those changes, we know the Republican Party isn't. So here we're left with two parties that are both, besides the few left members we have in the Democratic Party, which isn't enough. I think it's important to say that that it was a good week for progressives. Cori Bush's victory was significant. Rashida Tlaib's reelection, or winning the primary against the corporate Democrat they threw at her, that was significant. But again, we don't have enough progressives in Congress, and so the majority of our party, is these corporate Democrats who operate pretty much just like Republicans. They just use nicer platitudes, and so that's a problem. And I think that change is going to have to come through, direct action and protest. And, one thing I would like to challenge people with is our vote is our power. Our vote is our leverage, right? That is what our vote is. And I wish that people wouldn't give their vote away so easily and so freely to these corporate Democrats and corrupt Republicans who continue to put corporate greed over human need. I wish that people would demand something in return for their vote. Demand Medicare for all. Demand a Green New Deal. Demand universal basic income. Demand that the politicians actually support the policies that the people want. Because just saying you're going to vote blue no matter who, it means that you're telling the party that they don't have to work for you anymore. They don't have to do anything. And so what are the corporate Democrats going to do? They're going to turn around and just hand more power to their billionaire donors. They're going to turn around and hand more power to giant corporations and the oligarchs that fund the party. And so when you don't demand that your vote be earned and you don't demand something for your vote, you're basically just giving, a license to the corporate Democrats to do whatever they want. And just go back to the Obama administration. And you can see what corporate Democrats did. They bailed out Wall Street. They bailed out the auto industry. They bailed out the big banks, and things didn't really change for the working class and for the communities who need change. And so here we are again, stuck in this corrupt political system. And I think people are, having a hard time. But again, we have the power. Until the people wake up and demand better and demand more from our government and more from our elected officials, nothing will change.
I'm thinking we lost Joy there, Ryan. I see that she's frozen on screen and her tile's blacked out. Anyway, I think this might be a good time to run a couple of clips real quick. Do you know about these clips? This is the one from Nate's Liver this morning. Let me get it up here. Biden gets it. We're a diverse country. Offending all races equally is the right thing to do. I think that's from this morning. Let's see what he's got to say, shall we? Let's see what we got.
You all know, but most people don't know, unlike the African American community, with notable exceptions, the Latino community is an incredibly diverse community with incredibly different attitudes about different things.
Oh my God. You want to speak to that?
Again, I think it just shows how out of touch that Joe Biden is. Here we are in this moment of deep racial injustice and police brutality. And, he hasn't even said Black Lives Matter. He's actually, instead of defunding the police, he wants to increase the funding for the police. So he just, time and time again, he's shown us, like, as bad as Donald Trump is, Joe Biden is not ready to meet this moment and fight for the kind of change we need. And then he makes a kind of a dingbat comment like that, talking about how there's no diversity in the African American community. I mean, it's racist. African Americans are not a monolith. They are diverse in their thoughts and their culture, and so I think for him to make a comment like that is just completely unnecessary. But again, this is what he's done throughout the entire campaign. He has made, he just said, a few months back before this, if you're not black, then, if you're not voting for me, then you're not black, to black voters. And, who is he to say that? And again, because liberals are so afraid of Donald Trump, and I think that corporate Democrats have really weaponized the fear of Trump, that Biden doesn't have to give anyone any policies. He doesn't have to fight for anything, because the electorate is telling him that, okay, as long as you're not Trump, that's enough. And the truth is, it's not enough. And I think, unfortunately, it's going to take, people, I think a lot of people see Donald Trump as the disease, and I see Donald Trump as the symptom, and any country that continues to put the greed of the 1% over the dignity of the 99% is going to end up with a president like Donald Trump. We've been on this trajectory for a long time. And I think that, unfortunately, people are going to have to learn the hard way. I do think that some people are so convinced that, like, once Donald Trump is gone, that, like, everything's going to magically get better. And unfortunately, like, that's, we don't live in a fairy tale. Unfortunately, like, things aren't going to get better until we actually pass policies and change the laws to make the laws, different. And until that happens, the rich will keep getting richer. And because the way our systems are set up, that's just how it's going to be. So unfortunately, Biden will continue to make gaffes, and people will continue to excuse it and not hold him accountable for it. It's very weird. It almost feels like liberals are turning into the very thing they're resisting, because, right, like, not criticizing your political party and kind of this blind obedience to a political party, like, that's not democracy. It's authoritarianism. And so watching liberals and centrists, not even be able to call him out when he says that the African-American community is not diverse, it's sad to me, honestly. And again, I don't think this kind of partisanship actually helps us move forward.
No, I completely agree, Ryan. I have this other clip that Joy wanted to prompt up. She's still.
It's so bad. It's Joy's show, and she's totally gone.
Yeah, she's. There's something wrong with the internet. I noticed she started clipping, and then we lost her completely. But this is the other clip, and I think this goes to what you were talking about the message behind the Biden campaign. Is this a political ad, or what is this? He's driving a car. You want me to run this real quick? Let's just take a look. This is nuts.
Drive. I used to think I was a pretty good driver.
I didn't get a chance to flat shift in the second. I was afraid I'd go through those guys.
Tomorrow morning, we're talking about cars and what car you'd like to see come back.
I love this car. Nothing but incredible memories. Every time I get in, I think of my dad and Bo. God, can my dad drive a car? Oof. The thing I like most is the setup right here. And you feel like you're in complete control. This is just boom. Now, you stand in the front here. This is iconic industry. How can American-made vehicles no longer be out there? I believe that we can own the 21st century market again by moving to electric vehicles. And by the way, they tell me, and I'm looking forward, if it's true, to driving one, that they're making an electric Corvette and go 200 miles an hour. You think I'm kidding? I'm not kidding. So I'm excited about it.
Is that an ad for a prospective presidential nominee, or is that for a car commercial?
Here we are in this moment, and we need Medicare for all, and what we're getting are shitty car commercials. You know what I mean? Like, it just kind of shows us like how broken our politics is. No, I mean, this is not a political ad. This is just, kind of showing off but again, when you don't have any policies to run on, and you're not trying to change the system, and you're not trying to fight for fundamental change, this is what you do. You lean into platitudes, you lean into car commercials, and you just, you lean into kind of the pomp and circumstance and not into actual substance, and not into the policies we need to move forward. And again, it's sad to me. And again, I do not see Joe Biden's presidency as looming presidency, if he wins, as a vehicle for the kind of change we need. And so we're kind of stuck in this, like, of course Trump is bad and we need to remove Trump. But more than just changing our president, we need to change our corrupt and broken systems. And until we do that, we're just going to be in this kind of back and forth situation where both parties serve their corporate donors and really don't care about the people. And, you know, when I got into politics, I thought politics was about helping the people. And I thought it was about, you know, using, you know, fighting for policies that would transform people's lives. And unfortunately, come to find out, both political parties see it differently. You know, they see politics as a way to funnel money to the rich and to serve their wealthy donors. And that, to me, is why America is deteriorating and why our country is in decay. And, you know, corporate Democrats want to keep telling them it's Trump because they don't want to fight for any of these bold policies. They want to just keep the system the way it is. And they want to just keep, you know, they don't want to fight for anything that will challenge their corporate donors. And policies we need, like Medicare for all, you know, that will make things different for giant insurance companies. Policies like a Green New Deal affect big oil. You know, stopping these endless wars, that, you know, ends the defense industry. And so you come to find out that the reason, you know, Washington is the way it is because these systems, you know, they're profiting off of these corrupt systems. And until we shift kind of the consciousness in our country and stop profiting off of, you know, the fossil fuels, and stop profiting off of incarceration, and stop profiting off of a sick care system, and stop profiting off of, you know, these endless wars, nothing's going to change. And so we got to keep fighting and keep, you know, raising awareness about the policies we need. But until that happens, you know, it's going to be more of the same.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I apologize for all the technical stuff. I promise you, or at least I don't think it's me, because everything's nominal here, but now I'm getting a lighting blast.
I feel bad. I think it's because the sun is going down. I'm over in California, and so I'm getting, the sun is just, I'm back here in my office, and the sun is hitting really in a weird space. Sorry, everybody. I'm sorry. And Joy's having a hell of a time getting back in, but she's messaging me. I just had her reboot her system. If you want to give her a couple of minutes, can you expand on a couple of things that I'm hearing about the possible VP selection coming up? Have you heard anything, or have you already spoken to that issue? Yeah, I think that Joy said that they think it's going to be Susan Rice, which we started off the show with. Again, I just think it's predictable. I think it's safe. I think it signifies that they want to go back to the Obama administration. And again, this is a moment where we need to move our country forward and beyond Trumpism. You know, I think this idea that, like, they just want to, you know, get rid of Trump and pretend like Trump never happened, I think is really dangerous. And I think it shows how complicit and how corrupt the Democratic establishment is. And again, sadly, I think we saw a lot of this in the Democratic primary, where, you know, right before Super Tuesday, you saw the entire establishment get out of the way and clear the path for Joe Biden, which really ended up hurting Bernie. And actually, I love Jamal Bowman last night on a live feed said that, you know, he was on a live feed with Bernie and Rashida Tlaib, and he said to Bernie, he said, you know, he goes, just so you know, Bernie, the entire Democratic establishment had to jump you to beat you. You know, they basically had to jump you to take you out. And that's really what happened, you know. So it was nice to hear some actual honesty from Jamal Bowman, who just won his primary in New York. So again, you know, we do have this insurgent progressive wing. I don't want to take anything away from that. I think it's fantastic. I think we have to keep fighting to replace these corporate Democrats one seat at a time with true progressives that don't take corporate PAC money, that support Medicare for all, and also replace them with Democratic socialists. But at the same time, we also have to be realistic and understand that the majority of the Democratic Party is still controlled by, you know, Speaker Pelosi and the DNC and Joe Biden, and they just don't want things to change. They want to just, you know, let's get rid of Trump and let's go back to, you know, just running this corrupt system. that only works for, a handful of people. And, one thing I do want to talk about, that just, I can't stop thinking about it is, a few weeks ago, Jeff Bezos, here we have all this suffering, and Jeff Bezos made, quote unquote, $13 billion in one day.
That's
when
right.
you have an oligarch who makes $13 billion in one day, I'm sorry, like, the problem is not Donald Trump. The problem is you have a corrupt system. It is rigged for the ruling class and is rigged against the working class. And we have got to change that. And that's honestly like that, just the level of greed that capitalism has turned into. That's why I became a socialist. My political awakening, I supported Bernie in 2016. And then I started off the primaries endorsing Elizabeth Warren until she kind of, I started to see like, whoa, she doesn't really support Medicare for all. Like, she was starting to back off her bold ideas that she was saying she was. And then I endorsed Bernie and left the Warren campaign. And from then on, I just, once you see all of the corruption, you can't unsee it. And, I just think that our country deserves so much better than this. Like, we deserve a government that actually cares about its people. We deserve an economy that actually values workers. We deserve, a government that cares about our planet and is not, blowing up the planet and engaging in these regime change wars. And, I just think our country is so backwards, and nobody wants to change it. They just want to keep, it's like they sweep the trash from one end of the room to the other, but nobody wants to actually like pick up the trash and like take it out and just get it out. And that's what we got to do. Like, we're in a moment where like we cannot continue like this. And I do see, if we don't have fundamental change from our government in the next few years, I see a revolution coming. I really do. And I'm not saying that as like a threat or anything. I just think that you look back in history and all empires fall. When you look back at the Roman Empire, and you just look back, it's always greed. That's the constant. And when you have an economy where two billionaires Jeff Bezos and Bill Gates now own more wealth than the bottom half of the American people, that's just not sustainable. So if we don't have real change soon, I do see the revolution happening. The revolution that Bernie started, and I just don't see how this is going to continue like this. It's not sustainable for the working class, for our planet, for the poor. And so if our officials decide to continue this nonsense and continue to just turn their back on the working people of this country, we are going to see a revolution in the next 4 to 8 years.
I couldn't agree more. I think we've got Joy back. Joy, are you there?
Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Oh my God, I'm so sorry. See, this is why after 3 years I set up a Patreon, because I'm broke and my computer sucks. So anyway, I come very info.
We're making the best of it. Oh, baby.
This is Duchess. She wanted to apologize. So anyway, I was able to continue listening at least, so that was good. The car commercial was amazing. I'm glad I got to watch that again. But yeah, I agree with pretty much everything you say, Ryan. One of the things I definitely wanted to talk to you about, which we discussed last time as well, as you are one of the people on Twitter who just gets, we all get hate, but my God, do you get a lot of hate, and it's uncalled for, and it's ugly, and it's disgusting. And you made a post today that I really resonated with, because you said you get more hate from Biden supporters than you do from Trump supporters. And I seriously think all of us can agree with that.
Yeah. The moment that I started, demanding actual policies and demanding that, Biden do better, I started getting more harassment and insults from Biden supporters than I ever get from Trump supporters. And, I will say that, look, I put it out there. I am, I am unapologetic, and I unapologetically support democratic socialism, and unapologetically fight for Medicare for all and a Green New Deal, and I unapologetically say that we need to get rid of every corporate Democrat. So I understand that that's going to be met with some strong feelings from people back. But I will say this: last week, someone in the K Hive, I don't even like to use that word, but someone, because my Twitter account has turned, I use Twitter for politics, and I do have a private Instagram account. Well, someone in the K Hive went to my Instagram that I never use for politics, found a picture that's like 2 years old of my boyfriend's house, posted my boyfriend's house on Twitter, and tried to, they were trying to be like, oh, look he's such a champagne socialist. He's a fake socialist because he owns a house. Well, first of all, putting someone's home on the internet, like that threatened and put my family in danger. So like, that's not okay. I can take, trash me, they love to call me a grifter. I don't care. You can say whatever you want about me. Don't put my family's home on the internet. But secondly, it's not my house. I didn't buy the house. I'm actually not that, I don't have a ton of money. My boyfriend is pretty successful. And this idea that like, because my boyfriend's successful, that like, that means that like, I can't be a democratic socialist. Like, well, actually, no, like I am my own person who has my own voice, and we do disagree on politics. He's a little bit more, he's not, he will probably vote for Joe Biden. Whereas I probably I'm definitely not voting for Joe Biden unless he, gives concessions like Medicare for all. So, we are kind of he's more in the kind of, he's a Democrat, but he's not, a socialist like I am. But that felt really violating, that they would go to that level. First off, to like post my boyfriend's home. Secondly, to use that to try to craft this narrative that like, I'm not a socialist because my boyfriend owns a house. Like, it was so sinister and so evil. But the other side, it's like, if they're going through that length to attack me, obviously it means our message is resonating, right? Because they don't attack people, if what, we're doing isn't working. And that wasn't the only thing. They also made up a fake rumor that I was Canadian to try to make it sound like, my politics don't matter. I'm not Canadian. I was born in Seattle, Washington. And then they called me a Russian bot over 1,000 times. And there was another rumor like 2 weeks ago that I'm working for Brad Parscales, or whatever his name is, from the Trump campaign. I'm not working for the Trump campaign. I just want a Democratic Party and a Democratic nominee who actually supports the policies that will move our nation forward and that the voters support. 88% of Democratic voters support Medicare for all. So what we're asking for is not extreme. It is humane. It is what we deserve, and it is what we need. And I'm not going to back down. I am proud that I will not vote for Joe Biden if Joe Biden refuses to support the people of this country and refuses to support Medicare for all. I will be proud not to support him, because it is time for us to stand up to these corporate politicians who talk the talk and say all these nice platitudes, but don't actually support the change and the policies that we need. I'm done. I'm done playing nice. And I actually think the reason we got in this is because we have been way too nice to these corporate Democrats. What Democratic socialists and what progressives are fighting for is righteous. What corporate Democrats are fighting for is the status quo. So we've got to stop playing nice, and we've got to keep telling the truth about our agenda and doing it unapologetically and refusing to back down. Because if not, I worry about the future of our country if we just keep allowing these corporate Democrats to put their donors over the people.
Absolutely. And, some people say that our stance, that we're not just falling over, and supporting anyone who says they're a Democrat is privilege. When in actuality, it's very privileged to say, suck it up, vote for them. Your lives, I really don't give a shit if they're not offering you health care. I really don't give a shit if you care about the environment. I don't give a shit about any of this stuff, because all that matters is that so-called blue wins. That is the most privileged, the epitome of privilege, is to say, you know what? Black people are marching in the streets, and this dude is saying racist shit every damn day. But you know what? Don't expect more. Don't demand more. Screw it. Look at his label. He has a D next to his name. How dare you not fall all over him to vote for him? Well, the more he acts like that, and the more he says F you to we the people, the harder I am gonna not vote for him. I mean, it's just that I'm gonna not vote for him even harder.
I think you bring up a really good point. And sorry about the lighting. I've got like the worst sun coming into the office where I will not pick this spot next time. But Joy, I think you bring up a really, really good point about, there's a difference between just winning, quote unquote, winning for the blue team, and actually winning for the American people. And if Joe Biden isn't going to support the policies like Medicare for all and universal basic income and a jobs guarantee and student debt cancellation and a Green New Deal, if he's not going to support the bold policies we need to move our country forward, then that's not a win for the people. Because we've seen how these center-right corporate extremist Democrats govern. They govern for Wall Street and their wealthy donors. They don't govern for the working class. Corporate Democrats abandoned the working class back in the 90s with Bill Clinton, and they haven't come back since. So we know how they govern. And so, yeah, I'm with you. If Joe Biden isn't going to support us and the DNC isn't going to support us, we can't support them. And we have to be strong about that. And I think we have to continue to build this movement. I think Bernie started it. And, like you said earlier, I do empathize with Bernie a little bit. I think that, I think Bernie doesn't want to have what happened in 2016, where the corporatists blamed Bernie for losing to Trump. And I think it's really important for us to continue to tell the actual truth, that the reason Hillary lost, and if Biden loses, the reason he will lose is because he resisted the fundamental change that we need to heal this nation. That's why. You can't sit and take millions of voters on the left for granted and millions of independents for granted that also support progressive policies, take them for granted, refuse to support the policies they want, and then turn around and blame them when you lose. Like, that's just not how it works. Either you earn our votes and you actually work and campaign for our votes, or you lose. And that's just how it goes. In the real world, when you lose, it's the person who lost. And I never hear Republicans doing this. I have to give Republicans credit. Like, they don't sit in shame and blame their candidates. Like, this idea that, like, it's Russia's fault, it's Bernie's fault, it was everyone's fault but Hillary. No, it was Hillary's fault she lost. And if Biden loses, it will be Biden's fault. We cannot keep enabling these corporate Democrats. And because as long as we enable them, we give them this permission to continue to govern just like the Republicans govern. And that is, we can't have a government that essentially has two right-wing parties. One party has to represent the people, has to represent the working class. And until we have that, it's just going to be more of the same. So we have to be strong, we have to be united, and we have to, the other thing, like, we just have to know that what we're fighting for is righteous, and stick to our convictions and stick to our principles. If we do that, like, we'll be okay, and I think we'll keep waking more and more people up.
Absolutely. And, one of the things I'm dealing with, today on Twitter that I've dealt with before, but now they're going to this whole, it's actually, you're causing, Trump to every time you share this, essentially you're helping Trump, when in actuality Trump is sharing. Like, are you saying Trump doesn't have access to these stupid talking points Biden's giving on the news? You're saying that us sharing it, my 16,000 people on my followers because I have that many followers, now Trump is winning because I shared a clip that nobody else would have ever seen unless I shared it. And I had some people share it from me. It's so absurd that they literally want to blame absolutely everything on anyone but themselves. And now the other new thing they're doing is, let's just get Joe elected, and when he's in, he'll listen to us.
Right.
I would love to know a single president who listened to us when they were in office, or any candidate for that matter. The only time they change when they're elected is when they show their real colors and they revert to suck.
Well, absolutely. I mean, if Joe Biden isn't going to support Medicare for all in the middle of a pandemic when millions of people are losing their health insurance, and he actually needs our votes, he's not going to turn around then and if we just back down, he's not going to all of a sudden like have an epiphany and start supporting it when he gets elected. No, that's just more nonsense. Again, corporate Democrats and liberals want to blame everything on everyone else, and they're unable to understand what is actually needed to move our country forward. And it's frustrating because, again, we know the policies we need. It's not a mystery. We know we need a single payer healthcare system like every other developed nation. We know that we need an economy that works for everyone. We know we need to raise our the minimum wage to $20 to a living wage. We know we need all these bold policies, but they don't want to fight for it. And so we're in this kind of, so they shame us and they try to make up all these ridiculous arguments, but you notice they never debate the merit of the facts, because they don't have any principles. And so, today when Biden made his ridiculous comment about the African-American community is not a diverse community, they never debate, like they know that's wrong deep down, but in their head, all they can hear is vote blue no matter who, vote blue no matter who. I mean, they operate like cultists. So it's like if the blue racist says something, it's not racist. But if the red candidate, says something racist, well, then it's racist. And so that just kind of partisanship, I don't think they realize how hypocritical they look. I don't think they realize that, we can see that like they don't stand for anything. And if you don't stand for anything, you'll fall for everything. And right now they're just, I look at centrists and neoliberals, liberals, whatever you want to call them. They are the ones holding back change in America. Because, the way I kind of see the electorate, it's like 33% of our electorate's probably pretty conservative, 33% is probably pretty moderate, and then 33% is like the Bernie base, like very progressive. So we're kind of like a third. And if these more centrists got on board with the agenda that we need to move our country forward, we'd have about 66% of the country. That's enough to change America. But what happens is they keep like, oh, no, we can't support this because Republicans don't want it. Like, we can't fight for this because then they'll call us socialists. Or, they play politics so defensively and they run away from the policies we need. And what ends up happening is when you don't go on offense, when corporate Democrats don't play offense, they automatically are on defense. And it allows the Republicans to play offense and push their fascist agenda and their right-wing agenda. And that's what's really been happening for the last decade, really, is that the Republicans are always on offense. They're always fighting for, what they want to fight for. And corporate Democrats are kind of like, they start from the negotiation from a center position instead of from a strong progressive position. And then they just go even further right. And Republicans end up getting everything they want, and we don't get anything. And so that just, it's not working anymore. So I really do think our biggest problem isn't even the Republican Party. The biggest problem we face is corporate Democrats who will not fight for the bold progressive policies we need, because them not fighting for it emboldens the GOP. It emboldens Trump, and it allows Trump to play offense and fight for what he wants to fight for. If all of a sudden we're playing offense and we're fighting for Medicare for all, that will expose that Trump doesn't have a healthcare plan. If we're fighting for a Green New Deal and playing offense, that'll expose that the Republican Party doesn't even have a climate plan. But when you don't play offense and you make everything about Trump bad, Trump bad, Trump bad, Like, you're not actually advancing your agenda. You're not standing for anything. And so that's really the problem in our politics. And so until that changes, it's just the corporate Democrats are essentially emboldening Republican fascism. And that's what we'll see, unfortunately.
Let's be very clear. The Dems would be absolutely fine if Trump won again, because nothing better has ever happened to that party with who's in it right now. They can do whatever they want, and they're still getting donations. They're still looking like the good guys. And what it comes down to is that makes them look good by comparison. So they're okay with it. They said, they let Trump win in 2016 because they'd rather him than a socialist. And now they have the bar is so low that they'll take anyone at this point. And it's so beyond sad. And the other thing is, a lot of people complain and they say it to me and you. Why don't you talk about Republicans more? You're always talking about Democrats. Well, as far as me, I'm telling you, I never voted Republican. I never donated Republican. I never supported Republican. Republicans did not take my hero and force him out 2 times. Republicans didn't convince me to or inspire me to move from Pennsylvania to Iowa for 5 weeks to volunteer for a campaign. Republicans did nothing to me. I have never liked them, and I've never identified with them. So they don't owe me shit. DNC and the Dems I voted for over 20 years. They're the ones who took my money. They're the ones who took my candidate. They're the ones who aren't listening to me. So, and I know you get the same thing.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. The thing is as bad as the Republican Party is, they're not pretending to represent me. They flat out, they're very brazen about their corruption. They brazen about the fact that they don't support a progressive agenda. The way I look at the Republican Party is they stab us in the front. It's like, I know the blade is coming, and so I can see it. With these corporate Democrats, it's like they say all the right things. They offer you all these great platitudes, and then turn around and vote against Medicare for all. And so they are the ones who are betraying us. They stab us in the back, time and time again. And the reason I focus more of my criticism now on the Democratic Party is I just don't think we will see any change until we have a real party that represents the working class and represents the people. And so we cannot have this Democratic Party that, talks progressive and then doesn't vote progressive and continues to, cater to Wall Street and to, the billionaire class. Like, time's up. And so that to me is the problem with the Democratic Party. They're sneaky, they're sinister. It's like they're lying to us. They are lying to us. The Democratic Party plays the good guy on TV, but that's not really who they are. It's all an act. They'll say healthcare is a human right, but they don't support Medicare for all. They'll say climate change is real, but they don't support or fight for a Green New Deal. They'll say Black Lives Matter, but they won't fight to defund the police. So it's all lip service. And until we actually see them support the policies and support us, and like you said, listen to us, I'm going to criticize them. And that is what democracy is about. If these corporate Democrats don't want to be criticized anymore, and they don't want a divided Democratic Party, it's real simple. Then they can support the policies that people want. Because as soon as they do that, the division's over. But when 88% of the people support, Medicare for all, and they're against it, who are the ones dividing the party? It's not us. It's not the activists. It's them. Because they're continuing to serve the powerful, and they're continuing to, to stop the progressive change that we need. And it's not the Republicans. The Republicans didn't kill Medicare for all. The Democratic Party did. The DNC did. When they conspired against Bernie, and then just last week they voted against it. They couldn't even, and that's what kills me. They couldn't even put it on the platform. They're not even willing to and the other part is we control the House. So we can't even get a floor vote on Medicare for all because Pelosi won't put it up for a vote. And they won't even vote for it to put Medicare for all into the DNC platform. That's how much disrespect they have for the people, for their voters. And they want to go and they're trying to think they can go reach out to these mythical moderate Republicans and totally betray their base. And, if they want to go do that, that's fine. But you know what? There are consequences, and if this is the way they're going to behave, if they're going to spit on us and disrespect us and not support us, then we're not going to support them. And we're going to be proud about that because we are fighting for the policies that the people want. And I just think, thank you for your courage. Anyone who's listening, just keep fighting for the agenda that America needs. And hopefully, we'll see a shakeup and a switch in the Democratic Party. But until then, we have to be strong and stick by our convictions.
Absolutely. One thing I am, concerned about is, well, if Trump wins again, that would suck. But one thing I'm concerned about, should Biden win, is people going back to brunch and all of these, these incredible protests and so much solidarity and stuff. They slowly start getting fewer and fewer, less people, less cities. And we need to almost even protest even more if Joe would win, because we would need to, say that don't think just because a Dem is in office, this is all going to go away. Joe and Obama put more people in cages than Trump has. Joe wrote the crime bill, all these things. This shit's not going away. So it's almost more imperative that we keep going if Joe would win.
Yeah, I think ironically that if Joe Biden wins, I think the real resistance will begin. Because we are going to have to keep fighting for, Medicare for all. We're going to have to keep fighting for, all the policies that Joe Biden and the corporate Democrats oppose. So I absolutely agree with you. And I think it's actually really sad. Again, I think what we're seeing now is how complicit, centrists and liberals really are. Standing halfway between fascism and justice is complicity. And that's really what you're seeing the people in the center. They don't, they want to say they care, but they don't actually really care. And, we've got major problems in this country. And so, I agree with you. I think the real resistance will begin when Joe Biden wins. And, again, though, I also think we need to be encouraged by, what we saw happen with Cori Bush and, Jamal Bowman in New York. And, we are seeing some big wins on the left, and we got to keep that energy moving. I think that Bernie started the political revolution, and now it's up to us to keep it going and to keep, the fire happening. Because, again, I have no faith in corporate Democrats' ability to govern or their ability to actually do anything for the people. I just don't see it happening at all. And so I'm not fooled anymore. And I think once you don't believe the illusion anymore, I think it's terrifying at first, but then I think you realize, look, you can't solve a problem until you know what the problem is. And so until the American people wake up and realize that, no, Trump is a symptom. We live in a straight up oligarchy, and both political parties are bought, paid for, and controlled by the ruling class. And until we have a party that works for the people and works for the working class, nothing will fundamentally change. And so that's where our fight needs to be, to continue to elect progressives and democratic socialists, and maybe even build a new major party. We'll see. Because I think what we saw in FDR, the reason we got the New Deal is because the Socialist Party and the Communist Party put a lot of pressure on FDR. And we don't have that right now. When there's just two parties, major parties, and we don't see a lot from the Green Party. I wish we saw more, but they've never really been able to break through the duopoly. Like, we need a major progressive party, because I think that would really force the Democrats to change. So, we've got to stay engaged. We've got to, keep supporting the few progressives we have and keep voting out Democrats, but also, keep up protests and maybe even, support a third party. Just keep it, we got to keep trying everything and throwing everything at it until we see some positive results for the people.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Brent McKinney, for your donation. Brent says, such excellent analysis, Ryan. Knight in shining socialist armor.
Thank you for donating to Joy. That makes me happy.
Thank you. What is next for Ryan? What are you up to? Also, give your info of your podcast, your Twitter, all that fun stuff.
Yeah, you can catch my weekly podcast. It's you just go to anchor.fm/ampedup. It's also on, you can get it on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or wherever you listen to your podcast. It's called Amped Up with Ryan Knight. Tomorrow I have David Kim, who is a Democratic Socialist and progressive who's running for Congress. Last week I had an awesome conversation with former U.S. Senator Mike Gravel about his new book. He has been raising awareness about human governance and direct democracy for the last 30 years. And he actually talked about thinking outside of the box. His new book, The Failure of Representative Government and the Solution, is about bringing direct democracy to America. It lays out, it's like a blueprint about actually the people fighting for an amendment on the Constitution to create a legislature of the people. So actually the people can start to write laws. It's a fascinating read. It's a fascinating listen. He is just amazing. He tears into the corporate media. I asked him about his 2008 race, and he's just such an important voice. And he's 88 years old. He is like the sharpest 88-year-old in the world. I was in awe of him. So that was my latest podcast. If you want to go hear that, do it. And then I'm helping the Movement for a People's Party. They're going to have their convention at the end of August, near the end of August, and I'm going to be one of the speakers. Again, I think we have to be outside of the box. Of course, I still support Democratic Socialists. I still support progressives that are running, and the few left members we have in the party. But I also think we have to think outside the box. And so I'm helping they did some protests outside of Congress people's houses. I helped them raise awareness for that to get a people's bailout so we could get some cash into the American people's hands. There's a lot of people that were on the Bernie 2016 campaign that are doing it. I'm not officially on board. I'm just kind of like helping and doing whatever I can. Because again, I think we have to try everything right now. I think our democracy, we don't live in a democracy. We live in an oligarchy, but we're hanging by a thread. And if we ever want to live in a democracy, it calls on us to do everything we can. So that's another kind of avenue, the Movement for a People's Party, that I think is something that could bring some positive change. And that's really it. I've endorsed 35 candidates who are running. They all support Medicare for all, and they don't take corporate PAC money. And I'm going to continue to cause trouble and continue to hold Biden accountable, and continue to be in this fight with everyone. I just that's it. I just feel like ever since I became a socialist, I feel like I found myself. Like, it just feels so liberating, because like this is what it just, you know what I mean? Like forever it was like I didn't know what. I just didn't know. I was like a political wanderer, and like now I firmly believe in the socialist just agenda, and that we need to move to a politics that believes in human welfare over corporate welfare and the corporate greed that drives so much of our politics.
And I must say, as an outsider, it has been absolutely beautiful to watch your transition. We all knew you were a good person. Like, we knew it. We could see it. And we were just like, Ryan, please. And then we weren't sure if you were being facetious when you first started posting, like, okay, I'm going to Bernie and stuff. We were like, wait, what? But it's been incredible watching, you grow so much, and it's just a beautiful thing, and it definitely deserves to be acknowledged. You've made a huge change in so many ways. And I know that a lot of people revere you for that. Self-reflection is not something we get to see with people very often. So it's very inspiring. Thank you so much for joining me again. Sorry about the tech issues, but Duchess says sorry too.
Thank you for having me. It's always a pleasure.
Absolutely. If you guys enjoyed this conversation, Pat Cody, the burner, aka Nate's Liver, and I just finished our book and submitted it for print. It is a resistance parody. Ooh, there's the picture. Artwork by Danny Hellman. Literally every single thing we talked about tonight is in this book, coincidentally, but as a parody. So we have characters like Alyssa Shalano, Nancy Pagosi, Jennifer Poobin, Tom Perez, Joyanne Greed, Chris Badviews, Soledad O'Lion. We have some great people in here. But we also have Nina Burner, and she represents, and we have some all-star burners in there too. So it's not just all parody and what have you, but we've been working hours and hours every day for months, and we finally just submitted it for print. It is Amazon free. We're printing it independently. You can get it at savageandpat.com. And right now, because of Ron Placone's show we went on the other day, if you enter code RON, you get $2 off. And you can also pick either Pat or myself to sign it, and put whatever you guys want, which has been very interesting. Some of the requests are interesting. And best news like ever, Nina Turner asked us to go on her podcast to talk about our book. So the 20th, which is a Thursday, we will be going on Hello Somebody to talk about our book.
That's awesome.
Thank you. I'm still in shock. So please check out the book. Also, I have independent presidential candidate Mark Charles, who is Indigenous and a huge proponent of Native rights. He will be coming on the 17th. And I have some Mike Figueredo from Humanist Report. We're doing another show the 25th. We always kind of go back and forth on each other's shows. So lots of good stuff coming up. And after 3 years, I finally started a Patreon. So you can go to Patreon, Joy Marie Mann. So that's all for today. That's a lot. But thank you once more, Ryan. And thank you all so much for watching.
Whew.